Shalom and welcome to the crossover. Today's program is a birthday blessing in Bergen Belsen. If you don't know what Bergen Belsen was, it is a terrible Holocaust concentration camp. And today you're going to hear from Helen Colin. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
For nearly 2,000 years, Jews and Christians have been divided. But now, God is calling for the healing of past hurts and the comforting of His people. Discover how God is prophetically uniting Jews and Christians across the world today on The Crossover.
So we are going to have the amazing Helen Colin come and speak, a survivor from Bergen Belsen, extremely successful businesswoman here in Houston. Grandma, great-grandma. Let's honor Helen Colin right now.
You could have done anything better than this, sitting here and listening to horror stories. But yet, you came. You are the Americans that I was always looking forward to. And I am surrounded now with all of you that I feel in my heart that what you do is a great gift, not just for me, but I want you to accept the thank you from all of the survivors, especially me, my heart, because not only are you saving the country, this beautiful, great America, by being involved, but you're giving our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren a future and freedom. Freedom. Imagine the freedom that I have coming here. You know, I've never stopped wearing my butterfly because they are free flying around, and so am I. I was honored to get my citizenship papers and be one of you. What an honor for me, little nobody that came here with my late husband with $4 in our pocket. That was given to us to think that I will live to come to this great country and share this joy and the freedom and the love that I feel here with you. That is, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, it really is. I was liberated with my older sister, 3.5 years older. She really saved my life. Because during the war in the ghetto, I was 4 years in the ghetto, Lodge ghetto. No soap, no toothpaste, no toothbrush, no nothing. I remember today, Mother took a little plate and poured a little salt, and she says, dip your finger in the salt and just brush your teeth. It's just for a little while, just for a little while. And you know, we as children, we thought it would be a little while. That little while was 4 years. People were dying right and left, men, women, and children, because not one aspirin, no medicine was provided. Food was rationed. It was the most horrible thing. Every time I wanted to go and visit my auntie, I had always crossed over bodies lying, stretched out, sitting, leaning against the walls. people were dying right and left in the ghetto because of the lack of food. And my father was forever running, trying to find some, maybe 2 potatoes, 2 carrots, 2 beets, something to come home, bring it home for the children. We had curfew in the ghetto, and one evening my daddy didn't come home. That's not my daddy. My daddy was home all the time. The following morning, because he didn't come home, we cried all night, Mother and I, and my older sister, and I had a younger brother, 13, and a little sister, 9. And we cried all night because we knew the answer, that Daddy probably died somewhere in the street from starvation. Curfew was lifted in the morning. We didn't say anything. My sister took me by the hand and we went toward the cemetery. In front of the cemetery was built a barn as big as this here. And I'm not exaggerating, ladies and gentlemen. I still see it, it's in front of me. There were lines, like the tables are set, that you could go between the tables, 3 feet high up, bodies, dead bodies, men, women, and children. And we went there to look for our daddy, our father. We would not let him lie there in that pile with all the bodies. My father had a big toe on top of the next toe. And my sister says to me, well, you go this way, and I'm going this way. And we'll find Daddy. We must find Daddy. Suddenly, almost at the end, at the floor, and it was a dirt floor, of course. It was adjacent to the cemetery, but they didn't have time, didn't have tools, didn't have enough people to bury them fast enough. They died faster than they could bury them. So I stopped my sister and I said, wait a moment, wait a moment. I think I see Daddy here. Daddy's here. Daddy's here. Well, she was on one side, I was on the other side. We pulled the bodies and put them on from one end to the other so we can get to where Daddy was. When we got to where Daddy was lying, it was Daddy. He was lying there with his mouth wide open and his eyes open, as if to say, if I had one meal, anything to eat, I would probably be here today. When we found our father, we took him out and took the other bodies and put them back, you know, because there were piles and rolls and rolls, just like you see the tables. And as big as this room, not maybe even bigger, with all bodies. And we took Daddy out, carried him through the gate into the cemetery. There were 2 men working there with 2 shovels, imagine. And we walked over and begged, we cried and begged and pleaded, give us a shovel. We're gonna we make our own grave for our Daddy. Please give us the shovel. They chased us away. They said, go away, go away. There are mothers, there are many mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters here that we need to bury them. But we didn't give up. We did not give up. We went close to the fence, and with our bare hands, the two of us created a grave for our father. It was the most horrible thing. I was 17 years old at the time. And the memory of that will never escape me. Never. It's engraved in my brain. And my sister says, we put Daddy in the grave. His eyes are open, his mouth is open. What do I do? We can't put the dirt on him. We wouldn't do it. I had, for 4 years worn that little sweater. I took it off and I covered his face, After I covered his face, we started to cover Daddy, and each time that we poured a little dirt on him, each time we nearly fell on our face because we would never see Daddy again once we cover him. We were on the way home, and my sister says, you're gonna have to tell Mommy. I can't, you have to. And I said, no, you're the oldest one. You're gonna have to tell Mother. But we were crying so much that we didn't have to say anything.
You heard Helen Colin, who's a survivor from Bergen Belsen, share her testimony. One thing that she said or did that affected you the most today?
It was the details. I had always heard stories about the war, and I had always believed them. My parents raised me to believe that they were part of the war generation. But to hear Helen say the things that I had heard about as history, it just brought it all to the forefront.
Yeah, she's one of the few survivors that'll actually give you a lot of detail. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them don't want to give all that detail. And it's just like you said, for me, it was the same thing. It was like, okay, I read this in the books, but that she had to go through it. It was like not fair, I was feeling. It's like, why did she have to go through that?
I've heard a lot of people speak, Holocaust survivors speak before, but this one was more inspiring. And I do believe it's because it was so much heart, and it was just so as if it's still happening right now with her. The emotions were just overwhelming. Yes.
Any particular story?
Well, the one that stood out is when she was talking about the kids, and at the end when they were lining up, that they had them open their mouth to take out the gold and take out all the things that they thought of value. And it was just dehumanizing, and it was such an impact. I had to go in and thank her for sharing that.
It's amazing. When I asked her to speak for us, she said, honey, I have promised I will never be silent. Something that happened today with her testimony that affected you?
Well, I would say that the thing for me was really connecting to the individual stories and being able to meet Holocaust survivors and hear their testimony helped me connect to the individuals who suffered as opposed to just the numbers who suffered. So you actually saw, I guess, the inhumanity perpetrated against people, and that broke my heart. And the other thing too, in hearing, say, Helen's testimony, is that even though great darkness was there, because people stood up, life was saved and preserved, and even joy is found and demonstrated in her life. So even though the darkness can get so dark, when the light comes against it, life can spring forth.
I mean, I remember speaking to Ruth Steinfeld, who was saved 5 years old by families, and she said to them she doesn't know if she would have risked her children's lives hiding someone.
Shortly after that, it was about 7-8 months after the daddy passed away, and they announced that they are liquidating together. That everybody, I don't know if any one of you had seen the cattle cars. Have you seen the cattle cars? They're here in the back, anyone can see it. We didn't realize, but they announced that everybody must come to the railroad station. Well, the little thing that we had, we went to the railroad station, and as we were there standing, the trains came up, and we saw those cattle trains. And we knew this would be the last ride for us. That would be the end. The ride from where I was in Lodz, Poland, to Auschwitz was 6 hours at the most. We were locked in there 2 days and 2 nights. Imagine children, men, women, and children. And just the horror not to be able to go to the bathroom. And we didn't even have a little water the 2 days or 2 nights. So if there was a crack there in the cattle car, if somebody was lucky enough to stay there, maybe a little drip of icicle or something. It was September, very, very cold. Snow to the knee, up to your knees. An icicle came through or something and wet your tongue, wet your lips or something. After 2 days and 2 nights, needless to say, many did not survive. And it was very, very high to jump off that car when they opened the doors already from the outside when we arrived to Auschwitz. And the tragedy with the symphony music playing, dogs barking, loudspeakers calling, men to the right, women to the left. It was chaos, needless to say. We didn't know what to expect. We jumped down and helped somebody else to come down. And they came down, everybody came down. Thousands of people.
We will be right back. For nearly 2,000 years, Jews and Christians have been divided. But now, God is calling for the healing of past hurts and the comforting of His people. Discover how God is prophetically uniting Jews and Christians across the world today on The Crossover. The Crossover exists to communicate to the Jewish community that there is a growing group of Christians who love them unconditionally. The focus of the Crossover program is to promote a greater understanding of the differences and similarities between Jewish and Christian customs, history, and theology, while encouraging a closer walk with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. As a second-generation Holocaust survivor, Rosalie's Jewish heritage includes parents who were protected from the Nazis by Christians. Yet for more than a decade, Mitch and Rosalie searched for meaning in life in the New Age movement. But after returning to their Judeo-Christian roots, they discovered God's purpose for their lives: to rebuild bridges between Christians and Jews. Now through TV, radio, the internet, speaking engagements, the healing room, and print and video resources, they are reuniting Jews and Christians in fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Join Mitch and Rosalie as they tackle tough topics and welcome dynamic guests on The Crossover. The Promised Land.
And I also tried to make it very clear to the Christians all over the world that they are threatened to the same extent as the Jews and Israel are threatened. And I also say basically that Jews and Christians are waiting for the Messiah, who is a Jew from Israel who speaks Hebrew. And that Messiah is going to come to Jerusalem. And so Christians share this faith with the Jews.
The Hebraic roots of Christianity.
And we began looking at Jesus through Jewish spectacles and not our Texas spectacles or American spectacles or even Western culture spectacles. He's so much more glorious. He's so much more grand. It does not in any way detract from the fact that he's the Son of God, the risen Savior, but he's also a man.
Judaism 101.
Many times people ask, what is a Jew? Is it a race? Is it a people? Is it a culture?
Jewish-Christian relations. Bible, fact or fiction? For more information on The Crossover and The Crossover Project, contact Rosalie Jerome or log on to our website.
After that, we were assigned to a job. The Americans and the British were always bombing Germany. And the more bombings we heard, the better we felt, the closer we felt, And part of the factory, like a corner, was bombed. And this bricklayer was there lying, trying to help out. And we, the 50 women, were assigned to bring him from blocks away because it was such, the trucks couldn't get closer. So we had these, I don't know what you call these, bars across the shoulder with chains suspended, 2 buckets. And all day long we were walking. Of course, we couldn't, between us, ourselves, the 50 women, we couldn't converse. We could not speak, say a word. When we passed each other, we just said, this was it. Because it was silence all day, work. So we were carrying water from blocks away and dry cement for this bricklayer to fix it. And all that time, all the 50 women, we were all watched by 2 men, uniformed men with shotguns, and 2 women. The next day, I was assigned, and that man brought 1 egg, hard-boiled egg. It was wrapped in a little piece of paper with no more than maybe 4 words in German, where the British are. And he says, please read this to your friends when you get back to the camp, to inspire us, to go on. And believe it or not, the night before my birthday, 21st birthday, before liberation, all the barracks, imagine, I don't know how many were here, but 700-800 women in each barrack. Every one of them were issued an extra slice of bread, and they stopped at my barrack. And I cried. I put on such a horrible show. The children, my friends around me said, "Stop it, please stop crying." But I'm hungry and it's my birthday and I'm hungry. I want a piece of bread too. And it didn't help. They said they ran out of bread or it got too late to distribute. Please, tomorrow is your birthday and they're gonna start at our barrack because they stopped at this barrack. That bread was poisoned. And the following morning, on my 21st birthday, we were usually awakened very, very early at dawn. It was already daybreak and we only heard trucks and tanks and different uniforms. My sister went over to the door. There was a little split between, and she looked out and she turned around and whispered, "I think we're free. I think we're free." She was afraid to say it loud.
Such was the speed of the Allied advance that the guards were taken before they had time to flee. Inside Belsen, the same story: starvation and sickness. Liberated prisoners could not control their emotions.
Like a beat-up puppy. We were scared. We thought they were just different uniforms and they are going to kill us. There's no question about it. But finally a loudspeaker came. "You are free. You are free." And when we begged them to plead them to open the other barracks, that's when we found out that all these barracks, thousands of women, were killed the night before.
And now, here are your hosts, Mitch and Rosalie.
You just heard Helen's story, which has to be told, and she does it. She's maybe 4 survivors left in Houston out of 600 that are able to physically get around and tell that story. And every time they tell that story, it is just stripping them bare, right back to the memory and the moment of that trauma. And hopefully you really got what this is about. This can never happen again. You need to stand when darkness comes right before you and stand for the truth.
Call now or log on to our website and join the growing family of Crossover Partners. And be sure to join us again next week as Mitch and Rosalie tackle timely topics and welcome dynamic guests on The Crossover.